I have a very good friend that says that regulation, if you think in a metaphor of a car, right? Regulation shouldn't be the brake for innovation, but should be the seatbelt, right? Should be like that's why our industry is missing the point, which is collaborating with regulators, because like we should have by now be in a certain moment that is past the understanding that the real disruption lies on bridging the gap between real economies and digital economies. With AI and this exponential growth in information processing capabilities and large language models and brain-computer interfaces, we might witness, maybe not in our lifetime, unfortunately, but the rise of new forms of communication, right? We might one day not be interacting like this anymore with words and linear sentences.
So you came to Singapore to do some banking meetings?
Well, I don't mind talking to bankers, to be honest.
Of course, obviously.
Yeah,
I mean, most of the people in the Web3 industry are actually previous bankers or people in investment banks.
You know, there's some interesting data on that. Like 5 years from now, if you look at the previous experience, like the work career experience that most people joining the DeFi space had, like they had like 0 to 5 years at most of experience in TradFi. Now it's changed a lot. Like a lot of people doing DeFi, doing like Web3 on the more financial side of it, they have like over 10 years of experience. More than 70% of the people joining the Web3 space are coming from the traditional finance space. I was having this like meeting with this SBI, the CEO of SBI Digital Markets, and they're doing some heavy duty work on STOs and everything. So it's happening, man. It's happening.
Always slower than we expect, but it's happening.
Yeah. Well, not too slow. I mean, it takes time because like the disruption is not anymore into the tech side of it. I think we've figured out most of the tech stuff, let's say, that allows us to like tap into this like $1 trillion kind of like traditional finance assets. So
you're saying the tech side is kind of sorted, but now it's what? Like it's actually finding like proper real use cases that make sense to people, to the average person?
No, not only cases, because the use cases are there. Is like tokenization of real world assets, fractionalization of ownership. Many use cases are there, but it's about like user interfaces. You've got to make it friendly and find like building the right ecosystem. Most people think that the ecosystem is just like community users, but the ecosystem for a good Web3 project is actually made of like a diverse environment of stakeholders. Like you have to take the regulators into account. You have to take the institutions into account. You rely on you will rely on like payment gateways, ramp on and off. You have to be dealing with these strategic partners. That's why I find that it's very hard for like young founders these days to step up into the Web3 game.
You mean like kind of come out of nowhere and kind of disrupt the whole game?
Yeah, because
which is kind of like it's kind of like I don't want to say the dream, but like because most of these people in Web3, they're still like very kind of anti-system, anti-government, anti-regulation. I'm gonna come there, disrupt the whole thing. I can go the cool thing, or at least the cool theory about all these applications is I can go worldwide and borderless directly. If you look at, for example, these neobanks such as Revolut or these, I mean, Revolut actually kind of went fast and broke things and kind of looked at regulation a bit later, but like they still have to go to every new country and figure out regulations and all that stuff. Whereas all these applications, especially during, DeFi 2020 and 21 and all these things, the really cool thing, at least in theory, was people can build stuff quickly and they can go from nothing to everywhere within a few weeks or a few months. And that's why these valuations also can become so quickly, so fast, because you have directly access to all these people everywhere who just have their wallet, and you don't really have to think about regulation too much. At least that was the entire kind of hopes or thoughts during this bull market, and now we're back to like, reverting to the mean in terms of like, oh look, actually regulation is very important, and then there is like this kind of regulatory crackdowns and everything happening.
I have a very good friend that says that regulation, if you think in a metaphor of a car, right? Regulation shouldn't be the brake for innovation, but should be the seatbelt, right? Should be like that's why our industry is missing the point, which is collaborating with regulators, because like we should have by now be in a certain moment that is past the understanding that the real disruption lies on bridging the gap between real economies and digital economies. Like the problem is that most of the industry enthusiasts, they are still the degen spirit.
Completely.
They still want to hide behind their Twitter profile pictures. They want to be anonymous.
Says the one who has all his pictures of his body but not his face on social media.
Well, that's a different case, my friend. That's a different case. Like I told you, like I'm exposed in other realms of, like, say, of society that you don't want many people to know your face.
Yeah, that's why we'll cut your face in this interview.
That's why,
which is very unfortunate because you have a beautiful mustache, which I would have loved to show onto the world.
Okay, put me, like, blur my face, put like a mask or something.
Except the mustache, we keep it because it's too nice.
Yeah, thanks.
So, you come from Brazil.
Brazil it is, yes. My beloved country.
What do you think about the country?
Brazil is an amazing place. It's a beautiful place. It has so much potential. And what I think Brazil really needs, to be honest with you, is like a cultural revolution. We have everything we need. Like the soil is very fertile. Everything you plant grows. Like it's a gigantic country. So you have from, like, in the south, you have from like temperatures that range from like 5 degrees Celsius to 20 degrees Celsius, more very much like an European kind of like temperature. And then up north you have like this more like you go through tropical to equatorial kind of like climate, and so you get many different landscapes, many different cultures altogether.
Even if you just go to Rio, you just have already these, I mean, obviously not the same as like the entire country, but you already have these contrasts that are completely amazing. So you have like the beach, and then you have like these kind of like mountains, and you have all these. It's amazing. It's an amazing city that I would just recommend anyone to go visit because it's just insane.
Yeah, yeah, many different landscapes, and I think yes, Brazil, in order for Brazil to happen and grow into like a position of power in the world, it's really about the population. It's really about the population. That's been my struggle with my generational peers, like I told you before. Like I think like most of the people still think that politicians are the ones that should be making the difference, but they forget that politicians, they're just representing the people's will. So if the politicians are doing a bad job, that means that the people who put them there are not doing a very good job either.
Is it as simple? I mean, that's in my kind of, for example, I'm from Switzerland. So in Switzerland, we have this system that kind of works really well. We don't have like one person at the top. We have 7 people at the top, and they're all elected by other people who themselves are elected by the citizens, So in theory, I agree with you, but in practice, is it not? I'm going to do a bit, devil advocate or the kind of naive person thinking about these developing countries. Is it not the case that if someone gets into power, for example, in Brazil with Lula, there was there was a lot of problems and a lot of people are really not happy. And is it not the case that once someone is there in power, they actually have much more power to stay there, even if they don't do good things to the population?
Yes, because, well, we live in the world of attention economy. Most people don't dive too deep, right? Most people are lazy, if you allow me to put it this way.
Absolutely.
And another problem is like in Brazil, the vote is mandatory. So you have to vote. That's not the
What
problem.
happens if you don't?
You get a fine, and if you don't
Okay.
vote in like more than one election, then you might get into trouble to like renew your passport and everything. So that's a bad
Okay.
thing, in my humble opinion. That's a bad thing, because when you force people to vote, they're just gonna do it because they have to, right? Which is something that on its own could change a lot.
Because they're not even going to do the research necessarily. They're just like, oh man, I need to vote, so I'm just going to listen to like someone who can help me infer or make a quick decision, or I'm just going to close my eyes and choose something without going deep.
Yeah, and I think when we say that people are lazy, not only to do the research, right? They forget that democracies are like basically the politicians should be working for you, but you have to supervise them, right? And most people think that living in a democracy is just like casting your vote and sitting there and waiting. It's almost like a lazy VC that like makes an investment and sits there in the office and requests like some financial statements just for the sake of doing so. It's a very bad let's say relationship between power and population.
It's bad, but if you think about it, what I think most people think is I'm paying my taxes. So I'm already doing kind of I'm working in order to make money. Part of this money is going for taxes, which is going for the government to take care of my country. So I'm already kind of doing a big chunk of my job, and I don't have that much time because most people are struggling. They're struggling to, make ends meet and just live. So like, how can you expect them? I completely agree with the lazy side. Like, actually, it's one of the topics that we're supposed to talk about, especially in our millennial generation. Everybody's complaining, but everybody's lazy at the same time. So it doesn't really match. But if you kind of try to take most people's side, it's I'm working really hard, I'm paying taxes. Depending on the country, could be a lot of taxes. So I can understand people who say, I'm already making my fair share of the work because because I don't know, 30, 40% of the money I make is going to these people. And therefore, if they're well intentioned, they should act in everyone's best interest, because if everybody thinks about the win-win situation, then the thing gets better.
Well, I have my 2 cents on that. Let me go through this with you. I think the first thing we could address is like, are you really paying your taxes? Because like
Interesting.
that is like, let's not. I one thing that I really truly dislike, let's put it this way, and it's one of the like the unique things that I could say that I hate is like I hate hypocrisy. I really hate hypocrisy. So we live in a world where everybody wants to like say things like that. Oh, I pay my taxes, so politicians should be doing their job. Everything should work. But most of the time, you're trying to avoid taxes. You're trying to do some accounting, engineering to pay less taxes. So, are you really paying your taxes?
Do normal people think like that, or do mostly
I think
wealthy people think like that?
Let's put it this way: Brazil, more than 90% of the population earn less than $1,000 a month. So these people, they don't really need to pay taxes, right?
Okay.
And the people that actually should be paying taxes, they can afford good accountants, like lawyers that can do all the engineering for them. So it's like a losing game for everyone, right? So this is the first thing. And the second thing is like, I think when we live in a society, if you want a democracy to properly function, you have hard commitments and soft commitments, right? Like hard commitments would be the law, right? Soft commitments would be like common sense. So you don't go to a restaurant and just because you're paying the bill and the tips, you get the waiter to, I don't know, shine your shoes, or you treat them poorly. You're gonna get kicked out, and nobody cares about the bill if you're paying a 20K bill. So this is like there's hard commitments and soft commitments that should be addressed when living in a society and a democracy that most people conveniently forget about, right? So they remain very superficial, saying, "Oh, I pay my taxes, so politicians should do the work." Well, look at Singapore, right? Politicians here, they earn a lot of money, and it's very functional because that way there's less corruption, if any, because they're happy there. They can make like a career out of that. They
It's
can.
driven like a business, basically. The country is a
It
business.
should be.
Same as Dubai.
It should be. Governments. The problem today is that governments are bankrupt companies. So running a government is like being the CEO of a company going bankrupt all the time and finding ways not to develop the company, not to grow the company, but to like avoid bankruptcy.
Yeah.
So this is a big problem. Like democracies right now throughout developing countries and emerging markets are a losing game right now. Like and that's a problem. That's why I think that change should come from the population, the society side, not the political side. Like I've been advising for like government agencies in Brazil, like public institutions, and you see all these people in charge. They need people like me and maybe you, if like they need people that step in voluntarily and help them. At first, of course, they're going to be like, "Oh, what do you want?" Right? If you step into the game to help, offering help, most of them tend to think that you want something in return because most people do.
Yeah.
But when they learn that you really truly have good intentions and you can actually offer the proper tools and the help they need, it's very interesting because they embrace you. They need you, right? They need help. Their agenda is so packed. They're constantly being bombarded with criticism. And like, again, in places where politicians like take politics as a career, you've got to keep in mind that they are always thinking about being elected.
Yeah, of course.
And the problem is like they cannot take measures that are
against that
popular.
Yes.
That's a disadvantage that I see between democracies and non-democracies. Let's put it this way.
It's also very similar to being the CEO of a publicly listed company. You're going to think kind of very short term, like how I'm not going to be there for a long time. I struggle all my career to come to this position. I'm going to make all my decision to maximize profits for shareholder because I'm going to maximize my bonus and my own shares that I own, and I'm probably going to be out within a few years. So I'm going to make all the kind of more short-term decisions that benefit me and the shareholders rather than the future of this company in 10 or 20 years, which is why founders-led companies such as Facebook, Meta or Amazon are much more interesting because you have Jeff Bezos who kind of doesn't really give a crap about like short-term profits. So who are you? Who are those people that these governments need? Are these entrepreneurs? Because you said they ask you what you want because they think you want something. Are you an entrepreneur trying to make things better? Are you kind of you've done all your entrepreneurship, investing, and you kind of like set for life, therefore you can afford to say, hey, I have like greater intentions than just purely making money? Who are those, and who are those people that these governments should try to attract? And this is going to be a good transition to Dubai because that's Dubai is like the next 10 years, like most of the things will happen there. The reason you are there and the reason why a lot of people go there is because they just found the right incentives to attract those people.
That's a very interesting question. I would say that who should be these people are the people that are like a whole unity. What I mean by that, like let's think of in terms of numbers, right? If you're a full one, then you can start collaborating with the public good. Because if you're not a full one, that means that you're still struggling on subsistential needs, or you're still like in the path of your academic formation. So you don't really should care about sharing. You should care about building yourself. You should care about like getting food on the table for your family.
Yeah.
So I'd say that people who should be out there talking to governments, and if they're truly committed to the public good, should be people like, let's say, who am I? Like I have enough resources to help, right? And I mean, when I mean help, I don't mean charity. I mean to be out there building the future, right? Because there's like building societies, economy as a whole is a dynamic environment. You need people out there ready to make change, right? Change is the only constant in every human ecosystem, right? There's no such thing as like a steady environment when it comes to human environments, human societies, right? So this you that you're trying to address is people like me and maybe you who we're not like billionaires. We're not like out there just living the good life and not caring about anything, but we are self-sufficient, right? So we can look at this like let's say surplus of knowledge that we have, surplus of resources, surplus of time that we can actually dedicate to the greater good, right? And I do that because I believe that at one point in life you are either individualistic or collectivistic. You got to make a choice, right? You either believe that you're a better person when you live in a collective environment, or you believe that you're a better person living by yourself. If you're individualistic, you don't need to help. But don't ask for help. Nobody's gonna really help you because if you are selfish and whatnot.
Do you think you can be truly happy by being individualistic?
I don't think I'm the best person to answer this question because I don't chase happiness.
Okay.
This is not my like purpose. Let's say I mean, happiness for me is being alive. I'm always happy, even when I'm sad, right? Even when I embrace, when I'm sad, I embrace sadness. And that makes me very satisfied because when I'm sad,
you're a human being
that's trying to tell me something, right?
Exactly.
And I know a lot of friends that they're like, they flee from sadness like they flee from like a demon, right? Like they try to run away from it, and that generates a lot of anxiety.
Yeah,
there's vicious, put them into vicious cycles. They chase dopamine, cheap dopamine, like you know, and this is bad for me.
Cheap dopamine is the modern devil, as Naval says.
It's easy, right?
Yeah.
The problem is
it's
access.
everywhere. It's everywhere.
It's easier. It's a lot easier. It's a shortcut.
Yeah.
Right. So this is the big problem.
You can drink, you can smoke, you can take drugs, you can have casual sex, you can go on apps, you can watch porn. Everything is like so
simply
accessible.
Scrolling the goddamn timeline gives you a lot of dopamine.
Absolutely.
Already. So people waste a lot of time there, a lot of time, and time that's never coming back.
Absolutely. And when you do that, you're actually feeding yourself from this cheap dopamine, which is making you even more anxious and even worse. So it's like a short-term release, but it's making you even worse in the medium term.
Exactly. So vicious cycles, right? I rather chose virtual cycles. Let's put it this way.
Which leads us to a concept that you kind of taught me yesterday that I didn't really know about, which is the concept of liquid relationships.
Yeah. So Zygmunt Bauman, right? Those guys been thinking about like human behavior for a while, and we millennials, we tend to think that we know it all because we're one Google search away and now like one chat GPT interaction away of knowing it all, right? But like these people have been looking at how things been changing, and they're pointing their fingers to us and saying like, they're not judging us, they're telling us, they're warning us, right? So Zygmunt Bauman was the guy that wrote about like liquid relationships and what does that mean, right? It's so easy, right? Like think of ghosting, right? Like, okay, I'm interacting.
Just define liquid relationships so people understand first. So it's the concept of like the fact that in today's society, our generation, and with all these, the way we interact and all these applications, basically we have a lot of relationships that come and go. Yeah. Very quickly.
Yes,
and
exactly.
Like you are in my life, you're not there anymore. You're in my life, you're not there anymore.
So that means that we don't chase depth anymore. Yeah. Right? Like it's the same thing that we were saying, like dopamine is so easy to get. Yeah. So why would I like go for the heart endorphin kind of thing, which is like, that comes from love, that comes from like hard work or like exercise. There's things that take a lot more effort to.
So it's dopamine over endorphin, basically. The concept of liquid relationships.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. We can put like as an analog, but liquid relationship is like when everything is liquid is like water, right? It's like adapts too fast. Right? It's just like runs too fast. I don't think it's a good thing, to be very honest to you.
But it's happening a lot and more and more.
Yeah, it's a reality. I mean,
because it's so easy to just, because it's easier, because I can just, I have some problem, I can just leave and go to the next and get the next dopamine hit, and then I'm gonna have the beginning of the whatever relationship or friendship. Oh, this is like exciting, I'm getting to know someone new, and then but it's always as usual, like you have this kind of after dopamine release crash. Could be a friendship or relationship, because it's new, it's exciting, and then I can just leave again. Same as that's another really interesting one, because you've been traveling a lot and you are traveling a lot.
Mm.
Therefore, all this concept of liquid relationship and kind of way people interact today is very superficial. When you travel or you move all the time, or you live, a year there or 3 months there, you're just, you're not building anything. Like in terms of relationship, it's all very superficial. So how do you deal with moving that much, traveling that much, and actually building some real meaningful connections?
I think actually it's a bit counterintuitive, because for me it's been easier to build meaningful relationships traveling a lot than staying in the same place, especially because when you stay in the same place for too long, like people will start like putting you in a frame, and you have to start reacting to this like social archetype that people like, this social like stereotype, right? The social stereotypes and all these like little boxes that people need to understand who is who in this like closed environment. Since I travel so much, I get to pick the people I want to build long-lasting relationships, long-term relationships, and it's up to you to feed them. Going back to liquid relationships, the thing is like back in the days when you didn't have like smartphones, internet connections to keep us connected 24/7, what happened used to happen is like you had to work on your relationships. And this is a learning process. This pushes you into a very valuable learning process, which is you have to adapt. You have to understand the other person better, so you can actually fulfill their expectations, be a good friend, right? Nowadays it's very different. Like, oh, this relationship is too demanding, so I'm just like stepping away from it. Back in the days before internet, before smartphones, you didn't have that like hyperconnectivity. You can be talking to anyone everywhere in the globe anytime you want. So you had to work yourself around these relationships. And if you wanted to have meaningful, deep, meaningful, valuable relationships, you had to put effort. So right now, since people are lazy and everything is so easy, people don't really want to put effort anymore. And we call a lot of these relationships toxic when they start being demanding. Because instead of like trying to work this out, we just like label it toxic, right? And say, okay, this is toxic
It's
to
much
me.
easier. Yeah.
Point fingers, this is your fault, not my fault. And this is just stupid.
I was thinking about something, but I forgot it. Where's the limit? Because I understand that. So let's say you're someone who understands these concepts, right? And you're pretty self-aware, and you realize also that the true happiness, even if you're not like searching for it, is basically living in the present moment. But it's also struggling and doing these harder things, because that's, let's say, endorphin is going to bring you more well-being and happiness than dopamine, to make it easier. But there is still some relationships that should not be pursued. There is still some relationships that are not good. So where is the limit where you can allow yourself to say, actually, this is not good for me, and I'm not gonna, because you can continue forever and accept everything forever, and struggle forever, but it's probably not that good for you either.
But then you're into a vicious cycle. We go back to that, right? Like, if you can, like, a virtual cycle not necessarily means only good things and happiness. A virtual cycle means that you can go through like frictions, problems, issues, solve them out, and come out better, right? So I think when you ask about a limit, I think that the limit for me is when I realize that the intentions in the other side are not good.
Intentions.
Yeah, it's all about intentions, because like everybody makes mistakes,
Yeah.
and nobody's perfect. So this sounds very cheesy and obvious, but
it's true.
this is the very foundational layer of every relationship. Whenever I learn that the person has like a very heavy personal agenda, and there's a lot of people out there in the world that they are always pursuing their own agenda, and whoever crosses path with them, they're going to try to make them collaborate with their own agenda, and most of the time not giving anything back, just very manipulative, and maybe a lot of lie. There's so many lies in the world, like and small lies, right? Like our generation grew accustomed to small lies and thinking that small lies are okay.
What do you think about white lies? Small lies, white lies.
Well,
If it's used with the purpose of like making the thing more liquid, easier, and just to not hurt the other person.
Still
Because
a lie. Right?
It's still a lie.
Still a fiction.
It's really interesting because most of the people, like literally most, especially in relationships, most of the people don't think that way. And I was called out by, I was with a girl for 1 year, and like she really called me out on that, like directly. And for me, I was so not accustomed to, and I'm very like, I'm like a banana, you know, like I open it very quickly and I just say everything. And I'm a very like honest person, but like for all that side, I realized I was actually not that honest, because I was just like trying to avoid small problems. So just saying, oh, don't worry about that. Or it's kind of like small white lie here and there. And then she was just telling me, whether it's a white lie or not, you're a liar. And then when she called me liar, like it really struck me, and I was like, fuck, actually I am. And then I just went out there and asked people like, hey, what would you do in this situation? And like literally like 98% of the people would be like, yeah, I do the same. A white lie. Like, yeah, it's normal. Like, yeah, you don't want to have these unnecessary issues. It doesn't matter. So that's really interesting that you say it's still a lie.
Well, you said two things that are really real problems that we should be addressing as a generation, like white lies and normalizing things. You know, like we as a generation, since everything became like there's this strong will to make everything like politically correct and everything, we have to accept all the differences and like, okay, but there's a limit to that too. I mean, like we cannot normalize everything. Normal is a mathematical like it's a statistic equation. Like something that is normal, it's simply something that happens more than anything else. That doesn't mean that it's good.
Yeah.
Right. And for me, actually, I started understanding that whatever is normal is bad, because bad things grow faster and easier than good things. So in this, since we live in a society where everything is so easy for us, it's easy to understand that the things that are going to be happening the most are the ones that are not necessarily the best ones, because the best things take time and the best things take a lot of effort and sometimes sacrifices, right? And most people, they're not really willing to make sacrifice. They're not really patient, right? We lived in the era of anxiety. So people cannot deal with waiting, right? So there's a lot of problems there. I think of it this way, right? Think of life and in your relationship as a blockchain, right? If you start like telling little lies and everything, that means that the blocks.
Awesome. Great
You know what I
example,
mean?
actually.
Like, and when it is like a Merkle tree, and
develop it from someone who doesn't understand blockchain.
Okay, think of it this way.
Everything gets recorded and is there basically, and it's.
And think of it as a chain, right? As a chain of events.
Yeah.
Let's simplify it. Forget about the term blockchain. So a chain of events. So if you have a chain of events that grow like a Merkle tree, like I start with one block brings two blocks, and then it grows like as a Merkle tree. It grows into many branches. The foundation is always going to be that one block.
Yeah, if the seed is bad,
and as it grows, it gets heavier. It gets harder to sustain. The more time you spend with someone, the more you know them, right? The more secrets you hold with them, the more delicate the relationship gets, the more you know their issues, their problems,
Yeah.
their problematic behaviors, let's say. And it's always going to be harder to sustain because you have to put more effort actively. So if you lie from the very beginning, even white lies, or if you always like filling those little blocks in with white lies, that means in the very end
Nothing is
of the
sustainable.
day,
Yeah.
there's like just you might have a beautiful picture, but it's not solid.
Yeah.
There's no the structure is not there, right? So relationships wouldn't sustain.
So you have all these beliefs, everything makes a lot of sense, but you live in Dubai, the most superficial place on the planet, where pretty much if you go there, like it's all about, I mean, not probably all, but the first picture you get there is like people show off, everybody like does a lot of kind of very DJing things. Doesn't look like a place that's really a place where you can develop trust easily and where you have it doesn't look like a place that attracts the right kind of people. So what do you think about Dubai? What do you like about Dubai?
For me, Dubai, I think I told you that Dubai feels like the right place in the right time. And I'm lucky enough to be surrounded but what I think is the right people. But the term right is very relative, right? Right can be like for someone who has a very heavy personal agenda, the right people can be mercenaries, right? The right people can be like politicians that are corruptible, right? So this is a very delicate topic. Why I think Dubai is the right time and it's the right place for me to be is because Dubai right now is like this international financial hub. Everything and everyone eventually passes by, and there's a lot of things. It's the center of the world.
It's the center of the world. I was about to say, it's the center of the world.
It's the center of the world. So
like you have a plane, you can go by plane pretty much everywhere.
Yeah.
Straight.
And I work with Web3, right? And green technology. So that means that I work with global industries. So it's the best place for me to be right now. Even though like I love Southeast Asia is like it's living through a great momentum, let's say. There's and momentum still building up. There's so very many things that are going to be happening here. I feel that still the best thing for me to be based there because again, I'm one Emirates flight away from everywhere in the globe. Every single week there's like a big event going on in Dubai. There's a friend calling me like say, hey, I'm going to spend like 2 days, 3 days in Dubai, or calling me and say, hey, I have a very good friend that I would like you guys to meet. And there's like it's very dynamic.
Yeah.
And I like to learn. And the best source of learning for me, it's not like a book or Google or ChatGPT. That's people, right? The most important books I've read in my life, I didn't pick up on a shelf. It was recommended by someone I trusted, someone I admired, right? And so on and so forth with books, with same thing with like movies, same things with experiences, right? And I think that Dubai is playing a big role in my development. I'm the kind of guy that whenever I'm not learning enough, whenever I don't feel like I'm growing enough, I have to do something. I have to like to promote change. That's why I'm not a good fit for corporate, even though I'm dressed like a penguin today, because like I was having a very important meeting before here, and I had to dress up like that. But I would never be a good fit for a corporate role.
Yeah, because it's too repetitive and bureaucratic, and you can't evolve.
You're just like let's say part of a bigger engine.
Yeah,
you're not there because of your singularity.
Yeah, you're not a free creative soul, basically. I mean, you can't. You're like too constrained.
But Dubai is a good place. And there's
from
a
what
lot
you just
to learn.
said is basically all very positive about Dubai.
It is not only because I've also you can learn a lot from the Arabic culture. There's like the Arabic culture as a whole unfortunately, the Western media picture the Arabic
Of
world
course.
as a very conservative, like bad to woman kind of thing. But this is so silly. This is so superficial. There are so very many values that the Arabic world praise, and that they really work for to sustain that, to maintain that. Dubai is probably the safest place in the world right now,
It is
and
absolutely.
they don't
You
even
take
have.
your wallet. It's even better than Singapore. Like, and here it's good, like in terms of safety. But like you go Dubai, you just throw your wallet in the street or whatever. Like
And someone's gonna
nothing.
call you
It's
and say,
crazy.
"Hey, I found your
Yeah, yeah,
wallet."
yeah. Completely.
Yeah,
What?
and there is not even like policemen
Yeah,
out in the street. So this is like a
yeah.
matter of like culture, right? So this is like Dubai. I think that also taught me a lot on living in a place that is not a democracy. Because as Westerns, we tend to think that everything that is not a democracy is bad.
Mm,
And not only
absolutely.
I live in Dubai, but I do a lot of business in Saudi too.
Mm,
And I see how Saudi people, most of them that I deal with, they really like having a king,
mm.
being a kingdom, having a ruling family, having a ruler that they feel that really takes care of people. Right? We can go down this rabbit hole, but like
Absolutely. No, but it works. Like you see it in Singapore too. It works. And larger scale, like, I mean, there is a lot of things to say about China, positive, negative, but like the way they were able to develop the country, like it doesn't work. It it wouldn't work that well in a different system.
I'd
That's
say
pretty obvious.
it's a lot more efficient in many ways. Like let's put it like this: there's a hole in the road, right? In a democracy, let's just like this as an example, like a silly illustration. In a democracy, you take like months maybe to fix that hole because like okay, someone has to apply, and the Congress has to approve it, like approve a budget, and then they have to hire a company, and they have to do like a public like hearing, and that takes too long, right? Because everything has to be audited and everything. And in places like Dubai and Saudi, if like the ruler or someone in the government or even like a citizen point out that there's a hole,
Yeah.
like they're going to be it's going to be fixed like in the next day.
Yeah.
And also the next thing is like they get to make plans like Saudi right now. Saudi has this Saudi 2030 vision plan that's been out there for like almost 10 years already. They're still working on that, but they can plan.
They have these plans.
They have long-term plans. They don't have to worry about politicians making 4-year plans. We can also having to worry that they need to be reelected.
100%. That's how Singapore was developed and built. That's how Dubai was developed and built. You have like these 10, 20, 50 years plans. They just follow, and the thing just develops, and then it attracts everyone. Everyone in Asia came to Singapore now because of since COVID, and like everybody is here. Everyone went to Dubai. Yeah. Everyone is there. Like I'm here, you're there. Like, and we meet here. And I'm in Dubai like 3 times a year. Like it's just yeah, it's just and then you can look at other countries. You have all these people, especially in the Western world, like people who are criticizing that, but then you look at what's going on everywhere. You look at France, you look at all these places where like it's a complete mess that has kind of no future, is all going to shit. And if you're very practical, you're just going to look at, and you have to be practical, I guess, especially like if you want to build things, you're an entrepreneur, you just look at the actual reality, and it's a no-brainer.
Yeah, I mean, I'm in Dubai. I feel like I'm in a place where things are happening, right? And there's a lot of upside potential, and they're working to make that potential happen. I'm in Brazil. I think there's a lot of upside potential, but it's not happening, right? When I'm in the US, I feel there's not much upside potential. There's more downside potential, and like it's a bit of chaos. So it depends on where you are, like in how you perceive value, right? It's also that reflects on you. Like I feel that when I was in Brazil, I couldn't express my value as much as I can express my value from Dubai because I'm limited in Brazil. Like my good old mentor would tell me, I was swimming in a shallow pond, right? it's a matter of perspective.
Mhm.
Like the water we drink, you pay like $20 for that water in the airport, but
Yeah.
that same water in like in I don't know 7-Eleven in this in a cheap neighborhood would same water would cost you $2. So value is a matter of perspective
Context, yeah.
and context, right? And I feel that Dubai gives you that option. If you're in Dubai and you're for real, you're not just there like to tourism or spend money or to show off.
Mm.
You can actually step up your game. You can leverage your own potential because Dubai allows you to do that.
Does this mean that you're gonna be in Dubai now and then in the next Dubai and then in the next Dubai forever because you're someone who wants to learn, or do you think there is a point in life where learning is very important, but like all this kind of building and giving back becomes less important? Because some people would say the day you have a family or you have children, things change already. But you have a daughter.
I have a 6-year-old daughter in Brazil, and of course, I'd love to be closer to her and maybe even give her like an international education. But I am divorced and she lives with her mother in Brazil. And there are a few things that it's best for you to accept. And I think that one thing that I would never accept, and maybe the only thing I would never accept in life, is to be like too comfortable, like to be stagnation, like in a state of stagnation.
Have you ever been in that state? Like losing drive or being stagnating and kind of like not knowing what your mission is anymore?
I felt like that when I was in university. That's why I dropped out.
Okay.
I felt like that. I felt like I wasn't learning enough. I felt like I was stuck. I felt like it was consuming way too much of my time for a degree instead of through learning. That's
Yeah.
why I decided to drop out. I've actually dropped out of 4 universities. So like I've tried, for the despair of my mother. She was like always she was always sad, but I mean,
Either my son is a desperate case, either he's a genius. Turned
That's
out
it.
to be
I don't think she has the answer
both
yet.
the latter. It's interesting. The other day we had the co-founder CEO of well tech company listed on the Nasdaq, and we talked a lot about education. And one of the next, he said, the next company is going to build is all around education because he thinks that the whole thing is completely broken. I mean, it definitely is. And exactly what you're saying, I was feeling the exact same. I was at university, and I had done between my bachelor and my master, I had done 2 internships, 2 times 3 months, 6 month work experience. And I was at university and I had this prof in these top-notch universities. The ranking of the university is based on where the professor did their PhD. But I was just there and I was like, everybody is listening to this dude or this woman. And with all due respect, like they're great human beings. But I worked 6 months in my life. I'm 23, 22. And I worked more than them. They spent their entire life in university. How can you teach me something?
I have a good analogy for you. Like, there's always going to be good teachers. Let's give them the credit, right? There are good teachers that can really teach you very well and teach you good things. But I work with finance, right? So teachers, professors, and all these people in like they leave of academia, most of them are just like really bad fund managers, right? Because like a fund manager his business is taking 2% management fees and 20%, let's say, profit,
Yeah.
profit split, right?
Yeah.
So the thing is, again, learning, I decided that the best for me was to learn by myself. And most of the things that I know, I basically taught myself. But not many people can do that because of the way they're raised, because problems in family or whatever, right? And many reasons can make someone find a very hard time to teach yourself like new things. But the same thing is in finance. Let's say the best way, the most profitable way for you to invest is always going to be invest by yourself, but it's hard and the risk is higher. right? But sometimes people they rely on fund managers. But if you look at the performance of most fund managers out there, it's
Underperform the
ridiculous.
benchmark.
They're underperforming a lot, and they're still racking their 220s, right? They're 2% management fees and 20% out of whatever profits they get to make, right? So when it comes to like education, it's the same thing. When sometimes people have to, let's say, they need
You're outsourcing
teachers.
the guidance of your education, basically.
Yes, and then you rely on someone else.
Because it's easier, because you can blame someone.
And also the whole educational system, like you're paying an university, right? You're paying to get a degree. So that means that, of course, you have to succeed. You have to have good grades, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you've learned.
Yeah, because they also don't have because you're paying, they also don't have, I mean, if we talk about private education and all these big universities, that is a huge business in itself. They don't have any incentive. It's almost impossible to fail because they don't have any incentive to kick you out because you're a great customer.
Exactly.
And then most of the big companies today still hire. I mean, there is, of course, this concept of academic inflation where there is too many people who are graduated and therefore too many people with kind of university papers, and it's kind of harder and harder to get jobs. But a lot of companies, maybe less so in the startup world, but a lot of companies still, depending on the countries, for example, Switzerland or even Singapore, like still very looking at even moving to Singapore. If you want to move to Singapore to get what we call EP employment pass and all that, they're looking at your universities and your grades. That's what companies and even some countries look at still today. And is it a true reflection of on how bright or how much potential you have? Absolutely not. But it's still a way for most companies to, you receive 2,000 applications, like you need something to kind of filter out through that.
But that's changing. I think everything's changing. It's changing very fast. I think maybe not my daughter, right? But my daughter's daughter probably is not going to school anymore. That's the way I feel.
Yeah.
She might have a few mentors, right? People human beings that will teach them how to behave, how to defend themselves, how to do many things. But the real learning will come probably, in my humble opinion, from their personal AI algorithm. Let's say the same way you have your own recommendation algorithm in Netflix, right? That learns with your preferences, that is always there to make recommendations for you. Think of an AI that can grow with your son or your daughter, right? And then it's so exciting to think about that, because then the kid, one thing that the kid is, that every single, like, let's say, young human being is curious. We're curious.
Yeah.
And the problem with the current like educational system is that it kills that
completely.
Right? It kills that curiosity.
Curiosity and creativity. There's an amazing TED talk from like 20 years ago by, I think it's called Sir Ken Robinson. Why school kills creativity. Amazing. Talks about all this, and that basically you should be taught much more like kind of arts things at school, and not all these very objective lessons. But anyway, continue.
No, that's why I believe that this would be amazing, because most people also like fear AI, think, oh, AI is going to control, or then with AI, our kids are not going to learn anymore because AI is going to solve everything for them and they don't have to think. This is like being in the 90s and thinking that internet is a stupid thing, right?
So it's not scaring for you. It's very exciting.
It's very exciting. I mean, of course, there's a chance that someone uses AI for the worse. There's always this chance. Same with like atomic energy, right? Yeah. Oh, there's atomic bomb. Someone's gonna blow the world. But I like to look at the bright side of things, and I think that the bright side, the upside potential that we have with AI, it's enormously and a lot more expressive than the bad side of it, the downside of it, which is like, think of it this way: if my kid could grow asking an AI everything that she wants to learn, like, why is this bottle like this? Why is the color black
Crazy,
or red? Like, and the AI explains to her everything on the go.
So it's basically AI and voice together. Technology.
It's like real time, kind of real time interaction, like real time technology.
You don't even have to text anymore, like take a Google or ChatGPT and like write down, you just ask the thing and boom, get fed with the answer.
I think three technological, let's say, breakthroughs are going to change society drastically. So we're living through Web3. That's what connects us here. That means that we can actually see a digital economy take place, right? Because there's like digital unity, cryptographic unity can actually allow us to move value on the digital realm. AI, which is enhancing our information processing capability exponentially, right? And there's also the third technology that is actually going to be a trigger for a even bigger change, which is brain machine interface. So we don't have to type anymore. If you think of it this way, it's like we're still very mechanical. But no, we have a very something that I wish Brazilians would, give more value to things like that. We have a Brazilian researcher in University of North Carolina, I think. His name is Miguel Nicolelis. Miguel Nicolelis has been researching brain machine interfaces for many years now. And when the World Cup in Brazil, when we had the World Cup soccer in Brazil, the one that we lost to Germany 7-1, and that's
in semifinals.
That's the only thing that the Brazilians remember from that World Cup, like losing 7-1 in Brazil to Germans. Like the first kick, the first kick in the first game of the World Cup was made by a paraplegic person wearing an exoskeleton that person was controlling with brain waves. Miguel Nicolelis was capable of teaching a monkey to move a robotic arm, a monkey in Brazil moving a robotic arm in Japan with his brain. So it's closer than we think.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's going to be Neuralink with implants or if it's going to be like brainwave function, like mapping or whatever. But I think when we get rid of this mechanical interfaces, oh my God, we're gonna grow.
Yeah. And once, it's very primitive, but like you think about the way we communicate, texting, WhatsApp. We're one step closer is I have a lot of friends. I do a lot of voice note because just the text, obviously it's still like very primitive compared to that, but because I want to be able to think something and the thing is going to write it down for me, or even better, either write down, either communicate it. But just the fact of like having to take my phone, texting, making some mistake, is already I feel like I'm 30 years ago, So then I do these voice notes. But I still have so many friends who are like, oh man, like you're pissing me off with your voice note. But it's just the next step of like convenience. And then there is all this voice technology. So for the moment is hey Google, hey Alexa, blah, blah, blah. But like people don't realize that this is, if you think about it, and I'm not the person who's always thinking about being more productive or whatever. It's just like more convenient. I want to just like talk to something and I want to think something and then like the thing happens, like obviously.
But I think that if you look at the really long term of it, most people, I think that most people cannot get this far as this. I'm going to tell you, like, language itself is a limitation. The way we communicate, I'm thinking about a lot of things. I have a meaning in my head, but I have to translate into
language that I can understand.
And one word at a time to form sentences, to form my idea. what I'm trying to picture in your head is like with AI and this exponential growth in information processing capabilities and large language models and brain computer interfaces, we might witness, maybe not in our lifetime, unfortunately, but the rise of new forms of communication, right?
Yeah.
We might one day not be interacting like this anymore with words and linear sentences. We may find more effective ways to put more meaning into our into our interactions. I think have you seen that movie? I'm terrible with movies, but I have that one
I'm
movie.
pretty terrible too. So
I have that one movie that comes to my mind that like this alien spaceship comes into Earth, and there's like the humans are interacting with this alien spaceship, but the aliens, they, whenever they try to interact with you, they paint like a circle. They keep trying to. The humans struggle to understand and interpret that what that circles mean, what that circle means. There's a lot of meaning there, and that every time they interact with humans, they paint a circle. There's different waves, and like in the circle itself is like in a different format. This is one way that like express like how can we put a lot of meaning into the shortest time frame of interaction. Right, this is something that I think we're not chasing as humanity, because we're kind of comfortable in the way we interact with communication.
Are we really? Are we? Because if you think about it, and it's kind of, I have two thoughts that come from what you're just saying. The first one is, and we're not going to develop it, is there something else out there than humans on the planet? On the planet or outside? Obviously there is, because it's impossible probabilistically that we're just the only one existing, even on this planet. But we're just not, because of our senses, we're unable to talk to them or see them. But anyway, the other thing more related to what you say is, when you say language is a problem because we need to take all these thoughts and put them into a language that someone else understands, you see it every day in every relationship, work relationship, romantic relationship. The problem is communication. Like we're not even able to like communicate to each other. And the worst is on texting. You have all these problems like from miscommunication or misunderstanding because we're constrained to explain quickly, because we're in this world where everything goes like quickly. People don't have attention span. They don't read, and so it's a big problem, the communication and the fact that we need to use these languages to communicate, because there is all this misunderstanding that stem from this. And if you think about it, it's a massive waste in the potential of every relationship or outcome to have to use these languages.
I agree and I disagree, and I tell you why. I mean, I agree that we have a big problem in the realm of communication, but I do not think that the root cause of the problems we face in communication is actually in the way we communicate. I think the root cause is in intention, because in order for communication to happen in an effective way, you need a speaker, let's say, and
A listener.
a spectator, a listener. And in order, the only way for that interaction to be effective is to have both a speaker and listener with the same intention, which is like to understand each other, right?
Yes, true.
As simple, like it sounds very simple, but
yeah, it's true.
It's very complex at the very end, because the problem is most communications negotiations that we jump into, you don't find someone with the same intention as you in the other side. And there's like hidden agendas, especially in the corporate world.
Yeah,
right?
You're there
There's
to take, you're there to give.
agendas, and everything's a negotiation, and everybody's trying to get somewhere, and most part of the time is not the same place. This is the big problem. Again, this is, and then we go back to lies and whatever. Then it gets very chaotic, and confusing, right? But I think that we as society, we would grow a lot better and more efficient if everybody had the intention to understand the other before expressing opinions, before expressing itself. And this is a very big paradox. This is a very big problem that we've been facing in the modern times we're living into, because like most people think that what is important is to express their opinion.
Yeah.
And this is like a consequence of like social media and everything. Now that a lot of people say that like the problem with social media is that it gave voice to a bunch of stupid people, right? To a bunch of ignorant
Gave
people.
voice to everyone.
Yeah. So and because like it's important, like you, and there is like this, say, this dictatorship of like relevance, right? You have to be relevant.
Yeah.
You have to be someone expressing your opinions. You have to have an opinion. You have to take sides. There's a lot of pressure in people to take sides, right? To who do you like Republicans or Democrats? What do you want, right? Like, I don't know. I think that maybe we should just take one step back and remind ourselves that like in the very beginning, we don't know.
One of the biggest proof of intelligence is actually, I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, just acknowledging most of the things. I don't know. Like, even if I'm constantly learning and interested by everything, and like, I don't know most of the things, and I will never know them, and it's fine.
The kind of people that I trust the most are the people who actually do not hesitate to say, I don't know.
Yeah.
Right. And also, I respect a lot people that actually take that they're not anxious to reply or to express their opinions, that they can come to you and say, would you give me some time? I'm going to do some research and I'll get back to it.
Yes.
You know, or even like,
you're not looking stupid if you need some time to like think or research something to like formulate a better answer. Yeah, obviously.
Also, the most intelligent people I know, whenever I ask them a question, or they ask me a question, which is generally more, they take time to formulate it.
Did you watch the other day? There was this Elon interview. Like, he literally does like a 15 or 16 second silence before answering. And the interviewer is good because he's just not saying anything. He's just like there waiting. And I mean, it's a super interesting one because he talks about power, and he's just, I don't remember the exact question, but the interviewer is just saying like, like you tweet something and then like everybody loses so much money and you lose that much money, and he's just like doing a 15 or 13 seconds break like that, thinking. And then he just says, he mentions a film where he just says like, in the film, the guy says, give me the money, give me the power, I don't care. And then basically the interviewer is just saying, so you don't care about like losing a lot of money as long as you can speak the truth and say whatever you feel. And he's just saying, yeah, I don't care. All related to like this. And he takes 15 seconds, and it's awesome to watch because everybody's really like, absolutely.
He has a lot to lose, right? I mean, and it's not money. Like, most people think that the bottom line is always money. But I mean, people like Elon Musk, I think they know, I think he knows what he wants to do with his life. And that has a lot to do with change. And I identify with that, right? I'm very empathetic with that idea. And I think that this is, in his case, it's even more than just like formulating the idea better. He has to take care about what he says, because he influences a lot of people, and a lot of people not only judge what he says, but there may be consequences, like severe consequences to what he says. That's why like there are two like layers of abstraction that actually makes him probably take longer than like normal people, let's say, or to formulate answers.
You're saying severe consequences, but is there not also a point at which almost no one is, but at which he is, where you don't really, I don't want to say you don't care anymore, but like you're kind of unfazed, and whatever you say or do is not obviously, if you do too many mistakes in a row, it can like lead the thing to a bad place. But like, I think he's almost untouchable, like more than the US president, you know, because he's like so influential, powerful, and everything. Not in the bad way, but he's just like almost untouchable. He's just there, and like he can do a lot of things that other people could never do. In terms of he can afford to do a lot of things, you know, and kind of mistakes, because at the end of the day, we know that the guy has good intentions and he's trying to. If you're trying to you know, to bring people to Mars because you think that the planet is not sustainable, and you either are hyper megalomaniac and want the entire world to look at you, or you really have intentions that are greater than wealth and power. It's just like good, you know, overall good.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, some of us can, but also we can be fooled very easily. And I don't think anyone is untouchable because, well, think of it this way: if tomorrow Elon Musk like abuses a woman, then he's in deep trouble, right? If Elon Musk like, if people learn that Elon Musk is like financing, I don't know, child trafficking or human trafficking, he's gonna lose everything he's got. And you don't have to go as far as that. I mean, if people learn that he's lying, if people learn that he's aggressive or whatever, uh, reputation is always gonna make up for the good people and for the bad people, like in different ways. Like I mean, he has a lot to lose. Like his employees might start leaving the company. He might not be able to get like big contracts because like big businessmen and like people dealing with high level and big interests that they're very picky, right? They're very picky. They care a lot, right? Because there's a lot to lose. So I don't know.
So 2021, I think. So there's this crypto bull run, and then there's Elon with his tweets about Dogecoin and Bitcoin. I mean, all these to basically make a transition to Web3, where you're super involved, I'm super involved, and we still need to talk a bit about that.
Mm-hmm.
How big is this Web3 thing?
I think not big enough yet.
Mm.
That's the first thing I would say, that especially to my DJing friends out there, maybe listening to this. And a lot of people in the Web3 space think that we are great and we're fantastic. And dude, we're like, the entire industry is smaller than Apple.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
And in the industry on its own, it's not only market cap. If you look at we have something around like 30,000-40,000 active developers working in Web3 right now. That's also very little.
That's
right?
nothing.
That's nothing. And most of them are like beginners, right? They're learning because the industry is so young. So there's no experts, there's no specialists. There's always like the best people I know, they're dealing with the industry for like 10 years now, and they'll tell you that they don't know much about it because there's a lot to learn. There's a lot of research to be done. And I think Web3 can become a huge thing, but we have to look at a wider horizon. And that means like bridging the gap between TradFi and DeFi. That means talking to regulators. That means education, a lot of education. And that means like education not only on regarding Web3, how to set up a wallet or everything, but I think the very at the very end of the day with Web3, it's about self sovereignty. And I do not think that society, individuals, even our generational peers, are ready for self custody. Right? I can have all of my assets in a digitized form and hold them in my ledger, but people do not do it. Why is
They're
that?
still doing it a bit more this year than last year with what happened. Actually, it was terrible, but it was a great reminder for this kind of not your keys, not your coin thing. And I mean, talking about last year, Why was it so bad? Like, what happened? How do you explain it?
Well, I think whatever happened last year was necessary to happen. Let's take two examples, right? Let's take Luna collapse, right? Luna's collapse was very interesting for me to watch because what was happening in the Luna ecosystem had a lot to do with all this laziness, right? That we were talking about this like shortcuts that not only our generation but society as a whole have been growing accustomed to. That means Anchor protocol, right? A lot of fund managers, they were just like borrowing money, all this carry trade, right?
Yeah.
Everybody knew that a lot of fund managers and heavy people in the industry, not only in DeFi, but in TradFi, they were like borrowing cheap money here, like and putting into USDT and deploying it to like staking it in Anchor protocol for 18-20% API a year. That's easy. They're doing their job. Like the spreads were gigantic. Another feature of this laziness that you would see in the Luna case is like how many people invested in Luna, were invested or like had open positions, exposure to Luna or to UST, and didn't really read the white paper. Yeah. Because if you read the white paper, you would know that there was a risk for a death spiral.
The spiral, yep.
And if you really want to manage your risk, you would be constantly monitoring liquidity in the ecosystem.
Yeah.
And you could have predicted it. Because as we now know it, like 4-5 transactions in the span of like 2-3 hours, I think not even that, broke the whole ecosystem.
Kill the whole thing. Yeah.
And I laugh at my friends that lost money with Luna.
You can laugh at me. I lost a lot of money in that. A lot. And sorry. I mean, I was in the echo chamber, had Dokun on the podcast saying, we do things differently. We build an entire ecosystem around the stable coin, so you have actual some usage and everything. But if you think about it, what was the only usage? Anchor. And what was it based on? Shortcuts. 100%. So
no, but I still think that people like Duquan, they were unfortunate. I don't think he had
trying to do something that was really hard.
I don't think he had bad intentions. I think like people like the FTX case is a lot worse.
Yeah,
I mean, SBF has done a lot worse than Do Kwon on being like an industry leader.
Yet Do Kwon seems almost more hated with all what happened.
That's something that I completely disagree. I mean, I may disagree with the way Do Kwon like led some of the interactions with the audience, like some of his tweets.
Yeah, he was very cocky and
a bit arrogant,
basically. Yeah,
a bit arrogant sometimes. Like you don't say things like "have fun, staying poor" and all that stuff.
Yeah, it's terrible.
You're an industry leader. The industry need leaders that are willing to educate and be like a reference, not dicks. Right?
Like SBF was. I drive a cheap car. I go to the U.S. Congress. And I educate people, and then I fuck everyone over.
But then again,
that's crazy.
You rather have like a leader that is a bit arrogant, but is trying to do something right
because he's being attacked from everywhere.
Or you rather have like a leader that is trying to fake and like convince everyone that he's a good guy, but all that he's doing actually is like giving privilege to his little girlfriend, to his friends. Front running trades of customers, like managing very poorly, if managing at all. Like a company like he was doing. Like he was, as far as I know, from people that were that were very close to him, he wasn't an executive at all. Like he spent most of his time
League of Legends,
playing League of Legends, like not really caring about like his own development. It was a bit that he was the real arrogant man, right? So Duquan was a little bit of a dick, but he was too arrogant, and his arrogance made a lot of damage. A lot of people lost a lot of money, life savings in FTX, and I think I'm very curious to see SBF's trial in October.
It's in October?
It's in October.
What do you think is going to happen? Do you think it feels like with all the connection, all the donations he made to all these politicians, that maybe they're going to do like I mean, let's see, but probably a bit of jail, but same as the guy from BitMEX, like, oh, you end up doing like kind of just stay at home for some time, and then he's going to probably, especially in America, these kind of personalities are more admired for what they've been able to pull so quickly, and end up being, I don't know, another CEO, advisors or consultant, or doing like these big talks where they're paid a lot, rather than being like treated as an example and say, hey, like Madoff, for example, hey, you're gonna spend like the next 150 years in jail.
I'll be honest to you. I hope to see SBF in prison. I really do hope to see SBF in prison. That would be a big example. That would be a big example. And
what's the message it would send if he was not sent to jail, or like just like, oh, just gonna do 1 or 2 years in jail or at home? Like what's the message that would be sent? Like that you can trust institutions.
Not only that,
you can just trust
that you can get away with real
anything.
bad things, and that's something that is really bad in Brazil. In Brazil, you've got a sense that justice doesn't really work, and if you know the right people, or if you sometimes pay the right people, you can get away with pretty much whatever you do.
But there is still the excuse that it's Brazil, or it's Indonesia, or it's the Philippines, a developing country, where we think that in developed countries, Switzerland, USA, Singapore, we think or hope things are different. You can't get away, but it's probably not the case. Like if we think the corruption is happening everywhere at different levels. It is. So that's going to be a really interesting case, actually, to see like how corruption in a developed country can be also very public, and maybe he'll get away with it.
Well, I think that again,
that would be crazy, actually.
I'm hoping to see SBF go to jail for many years. I'm not like, I mean, I wouldn't mind that. I wouldn't feel pity of him. You know what I mean? I think he deserves that. I think you cannot do what he's done. You just cannot do like you have a lot of responsibility under your umbrella. You have to step up to your game and well, deserve right what you're getting. And I think like the Arthur Hayes case is very different, right? Because I've read all the prosecution case against him, all the way that the prosecutors really let's say reverse engineer the market manipulation cases, that they were like trading against their own users and everything. He got away with it. We know that he made a deal with the authorities. He paid a fine. He probably had to name a few people that the authorities wanted to know about more than they cared about the few.
I think they also used the racism card, basically saying, the racism card against like one of the few, kind of influential Black person in a new industry, and that, from what I hear, that worked really well.
But again, this is the law game, right? The lawyer's game is a dirty game. This is something that is like outside the boundaries of my understanding, to be honest. For me, in the perfect world, I'm sorry, my lawyer friends, but in the perfect world,
because we're just good people with good intentions, and common sense.
We shouldn't need lawyers. We shouldn't need like complicated contracts with this like dialect that normal people don't understand. That's bad. But that's it. I think that last year was important. I mean, every bull bear cycle, or every single like big event, failure event that we've seen in the Web3 space is making the industry, it's building a more mature industry. And that's necessary, because it's like, it's the thing about decentralization. Like, decentralization sometimes works against our own principles in this industry, because I'm a very strong advocate to cooperation in the industry. I think the things we need the most in Web3 right now are standards and broader cooperation. Because we're just losing way too much time, resources, and I mean, spending a lot more effort and energy on things that we could be doing in a more cooperative way between all these market participants for us to move faster and move forward with the industry. Like digital identity, I don't really like the competition that is out there to build like digital identity protocols. I really think that is something that should come out of a broader cooperation scheme between market participants. Everybody sit together. Let's build this digital identity protocol that everybody uses. There shouldn't be one entity, benefiting or profiting from it. It's a standard that is necessary, right? Same thing. You can go as far as like ZK rollups, right? Why aren't we cooperating to build one ZK rollup standard? And we're watching all of these companies trying to do different ZK rollup solutions when only one or two of them are going to survive. Where is all of this money funding ZK rollup companies gonna go? It's gonna go anywhere, right? And what's gonna happen with all these developers that are like spending so very many hours and a lot of effort into developing these solutions that are not going to be used. Right? So I'm a very strong advocate of broader cooperation in the industry and standardization, and that's something that unfortunately the very idea of decentralization actually operates against, because when we are too decentralized, then that means that we're not. It's harder to promote broader cooperation.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? So this is something that we should be as a group, right? As an industry, be looking at addressing more actively.
What's your relationship with money?
Money for me is fuel, right?
Fuel.
Yeah, it's resource, right? It's a mean. Like I need money to burn in my journey to get where I want to, right? Which is basically in a state where I can be more impactful, where I can be more relevant to address the topics that I would like to address, which are basically social, economic, environmental issues, and what keeps me alive and what keeps me here instead of being like in my sailboat somewhere offshore, writing books, watching movies, and not caring about anyone, is the fact that I think that I can promote change. And I think that I can help. I can be with people like you. You can be working with interesting people throughout the globe to make things better.
So it's an instrument for change, basically.
Yeah, basically, yeah.
Do you think that money changed you as a person? Because you said you come from a upbringing that are kind of normal and not with a lot of money. For the better? Did you change for the better? Or do you also see some sides that you don't like, or actually at some point that you didn't like? Because we always say like money doesn't change you that much. It more like kind of exposes you more, or say that kind of like demultiplies your personality. So if you're a good person, it's going to show like more good thing. If you're not necessarily, the good aspects will show more, the bad aspects will also show more.
Yes, money changed me for sure. I think money is the most powerful thing that is out there in the materialistic realm, right? Money is power, especially in days like this that we're living into. And as everything else in life, I believe that life is not a 2D graph like let's say a trading kind of technical analysis kind of graph. Is not up or down. Everything that happens is in life actually belongs to a 3D kind of let's say module for understanding, which means that whenever you're exposed to something very good, that means that you're also capable of reaching the very far side of it, right? The very opposite side of it. That means that in order for you to be successful with money, you have to experience losses.
Mm.
Right. And the more you win, the more you expose it for
Of
big
course.
losses. And it's why I'm saying that is like I've been in a position where I had a lot of money to invest, and I invested it all basically in like equity, in like companies, in my family and everything. I was never the guy, I was never a conservative guy, so I don't like I don't like to I don't really like to put the money to work for me, because that means like that means that I'm cooperating with a whole broader scheme of like concentrating wealth and
Yeah.
making things even more.
Goes against your principle of like changing things, because you're
Yes.
just making money work for yourself and for your own safety.
Yeah, like I mean, passive income is one thing, but I mean, just putting the money to work for you in a financial world and not generating any value, not generating value, it's something that I feel I don't really feel comfortable with, right? But I come from from a very, like, let's say, middle class family, and we never had much money, so my family never really paid for an international trip of myself, right? So this is like I had to earn my own money, and the more I took risks, the more I made money. But at one point, or maybe more than one time, I actually pretty much lost everything I had, or found myself in a very illiquid position.
Yeah.
Right. So I had to go through very weird.
How many times did this happen? For me, it happened twice already. I'm talking about life-changing wealth that either you lose, either you kind of stuck for a while, either you kind of get back to like, how the fuck did I manage to get back into this? I don't want to say precarious position, because you still have an amazing life, but you need to be careful again, you know? Like, and you're like, how the fuck did I manage to go from like, the Luna thing was an interesting one. Like $6 million US disappeared in 2 days.
That's tough.
So, I mean, became $5. So that's a change in lifestyle and in like everything, you know, because from this $6 million, like what can you generate? You invest in Bali real estate. Let's say you have 20%. That's 1.2 mil per year in rental income. You invest in, I mean, whatever, you know, like if at 5%, like that's 300K a year. Like it's huge. Doing nothing, you know, or you can reinvest in a lot of different things, or that could be at 100K a year. That could be 60 years worth of life, or that could be at 100K per villa in Bali. That would be 60 villas. Obviously, you see everything on the screen. You're like, oh, this is not real, etc. But like, so one of my points. My point was basically, I mean, yeah, getting back to like a couple of times to like, I mean, I see kind of wealth has like higher lows. So as long as the next low is like higher than the previous one, like you're improving. But yeah, sometimes as risk takers, like it's good because you don't get to like these big highs and everything without taking risk, but like also you can easily put yourself like into like some shit situation where like, man, like really, where then you're less able to give more to everyone else because you just like fucked up the whole thing.
I think, answering your question, I've been in positions like that maybe 2 or 3 times too. Like either very illiquid or actually losing some, like what I had before. And I mean, to a point where you actually have to like either borrow from friends or like or really adapt your lifestyle drastically to go basically to your eating habits, you know, like skipping meals, dude.
Okay, that's next level. Okay.
Yeah,
when is the last time this happened?
I think few years ago now. Before COVID. At COVID, I was lucky enough to have a cushion, you know, like and I took I think I look back and I feel like I've took the right decisions, like sell the companies even for like not as much money as I could have made. I had some savings, and I could work myself through it. But before that, I had made mistakes as to like not be liquid enough, and so you don't want to borrow money, so you have to like endure like it. It may have been for a limited amount of time that that is gonna be over. It was never like this kind of frick, I'm like adrift, right?
Yeah.
I never experienced that kind of like desperation, but I had experiences where I knew that I would have to endure
There's this window where you need to kind of survive because things will pick up later, but you need to be patient, basically.
Exactly.
And accept the change in lifestyle.
But that teaches you a lot too, especially teaches you the value of money.
Yeah. Big time. Big time.
Yeah.
What's something that you believe in and your belief gets stronger every day?
Something I believe and my belief gets stronger every day?
Yeah.
I believe very fondly in the value of building relationships. And every time I find a good new relationship, I try to work on that. I always find sometimes you don't know why. Sometimes it's like a very risky venture, right? Like, I don't know why I have an empathetic feeling, or I don't know why I feel like I'm connected to that person, or I feel like that something can come out of this relationship, or maybe you don't even know what, but it always pays off. It always pays off. Sometimes in the most unexpected ways.
Karma.
Yeah, I mean, I always tell my friends, like, give chance a chance.
Yeah,
that's what I tell them. Like, give chance a chance because it always pays off. If you being alive, like the existential human experience is a probabilistic adventure. If you don't expose yourself to the probabilities, you don't get them.
Yeah.
So like, be out there, expose yourself, keep yourself hungry, right? For new experiences, for learning, and it will pay off. I'm pretty sure.
Awesome. Thank you so much for doing this, Rodrigo.
My pleasure. My pleasure indeed.
Muito obrigado. Where can people connect with you?
I think I'm not a really social person in social media. I mean, but LinkedIn is a good way. I get a lot of people that reach out to me on LinkedIn, and I mean, I travel a lot, and I'm always there into Web3 space. Like, if you go through like Web3 events,
catch me if you can.
It's basically
playing the Catch Me If You Can live.
I'm not very easy to access, and I like to keep things like that. But I think LinkedIn is the professional, let's say, environment. So if you want to reach out to me, hit me up on LinkedIn.
Awesome. Thank you so much, man.
Thank you. Keep doing that, man. I like that. This is very important.
Absolutely.
Yeah.